Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about the format today before
Okay.
we get started. We have 30 minutes. All of the mayoral candidates have had 30 minutes. We are asking them, all of you, the same 5 questions. If there's time, we have the option for a bonus question. If there's time after that, we open it up to our partners to ask any questions, either about something you've already answered in more detail or another topic entirely.
Okay.
Okay? So, so what we would like to do first is ask you to tell us who you are, what position you are running for, and just a brief detail about yourself.
Okay. Ready?
Go
Okay.
ahead.
Hi, my name is Marc Whitfield. I'm running for the office of mayor of Macon and Macon-Bibb. And a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Macon, Georgia. I attended St. Peter Claver Elementary School all the way up to 8th grade and Mount DeSales, and then I graduated from Southwest High School. From there, Howard University, and made my way to Mercer University. And my career has been in insurance, finance, and banking. So I worked 10 years at GEICO, 5 years with BB&T, 4 years with SunTrust, and 10 years with Wachovia. Okay. And Wachovia Securities. I had 5 years with them. So.
Very good. Our first question was an issue that was number one for a lot of people. How would you address violent crime in Macon-Bibb?
Well, it starts with addressing poverty. And when Mayor Ellis was elected first in 1999, he had my father and I be on a committee, and he said, hey, let's try to do something to address, poverty and crime. And I said, well, let's see what we can do. So my dad and I, we got together and we said, it's going to be jobs and it's going to be youth development. So I wrote the initial workforce development program for Macon at that time on that committee. And my dad wrote the initial Police Activity League, the PALS program. And what we did there is we had something for the unskilled workers. We tried to get them skilled, and we had federal dollars for that. And we also had something new on the Workforce Investment Act of 1998, that it had something for youth in there as well, which it didn't have before. So I took advantage of that, and I created the Youth Workforce Council as well under that. And that provided dollars for training youth with soft job skills, helping with mentoring and so forth. And from that, we said with providing something for the parents to try to get skilled and get decent paying jobs, and having something for the children to give them something structured and have mentoring as well. That seemed to work. And unless you are addressing poverty with that, you're going to have children who are going hungry. They have no other way of trying to get money for food other than property damage claims. So you have all this property crime. When they get older, they begin to have children. So you have a lot of 16, 17, 18-year-old males, and they have no other way to take care of the young, or they have 6 parents or young siblings at home, and they feel like they have to provide. So they now join a gang because the gang is family. So there's safety in numbers, and now those individuals go out and they try to get money in any way they can. And until you address the poverty, the hopelessness, and the despair of that group of people, and bring in or create jobs for them to have a decent wage, a living wage, we're going to have a repetitive issue with crime. It's not going to go away because people have lack. As long as they have lack, you're going to have crime.
Okay. Well, would you do to tackle that problem?
That's, again, going back to the abandonment of a lot of the homes here, and either it's going through investments and learning, as a banker and also being in investments. I had the opportunity to meet a lot of people who come through my doors, all walks of life. Well, you're millionaires, some people are working poor, some people are public assistants, others are just your middle class, hardworking family. And they all had their own, issues that they were very important to them. And one thing I learned about taxpayers and the ones who are carrying the burden of the taxes is that they like to see a return on their investment. And if they don't have a return on their investment, then the smart thing is to leave and go somewhere else where you will get a return on your investment. And that's why we have so much flight with the taxpayers who are carrying the burden. So most of the time, they're going to be your landowners, your landlords, and if they are no longer interested in investing in the community, you're going to have blight. And of course, home ownership is another thing. So if you have a lot of rental properties that are owned by individuals who are not living here, who are not vested in this community, they don't care. It's just a rental property to them. So it's not a part of the community. And so, it's a lack of incentive for them to do anything about it. So the answer to that, to me, is create jobs. And if you can't convince companies to come in and bring jobs in, then it's up to leadership to find a way to create jobs yourself. And I think we have the resources here to be able to create jobs ourselves. And that's one of the things I really want to do. I have some ideas to do that, and I will share them with the right time. But I know that with the resources we have here and all of the surrounding resources we have, there's no reason why we can't create our own jobs and create revenue for ourselves and our community.
Okay. You were answering to the question, I said blight.
Right.
Okay, about housing.
Correct.
Okay, very good.
So let me expand on that, I think, so I can answer your question more fully. In banking, one of the most difficult things for most people coming out of the poverty or trying to reach to the middle class is home ownership. So if we can get them a living wage where they qualify to purchase a home, then we can find subsidies there to help them buy those homes that are considered blight, have them renovated to make them up to standard, and those homeowners will go in, and I think that will transform those neighborhoods. And it starts back to, again, are there jobs there for these individuals to have that will qualify for a home mortgage and for them to purchase these homes? Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of vacant homes, and that's the blight. And I don't care what anyone says, it's not just going to go away. Either you're going to tear them all down, or you're going to try to find a way to renovate them, put homeowners in there, people who are vested in that community, and then the blight will start to disappear.
Okay. As mayor, how would you prioritize spending to improve 3 issues: road conditions, road safety, and traffic concerns, all related to roads?
I've been so focused on the issues of poverty and lack that infrastructure, I would have to examine the budget and take a closer look at, seeing how the allocation of expenses would work with those things. Just with the road construction that's going on now, to answer that question intelligently, I would really have to have more information and review the budget more closely. So just, on the surface, the road conditions, the interstates and the exchanges, those would be number one for me. Because the public safety with it hurts me to hear about the pedestrians that are getting hit over and over again on Gray Highway. And something has to be done about that. Yeah, we have some potholes, we have some other infrastructure issues, but I put life ahead of that. The budget will take care of those things. The county commissioners they will, assist the mayor in addressing those issues. I'm more focused on the life of the residents and what I can do to protect their lives and make their lives better. So that's why I've had less of a focus on the budget issue of what are we going to do about roads, allocation of funds, and so forth. That has been something that has been secondary for me.
Okay. Understanding that local government does not have control over education, the school board does that. What can the county government do to assist with improvements in the Bibb County school system?
Well, I do recognize that the mayor doesn't have authority over the Board of Education, but I think it's the mayor's responsibility to look after each and every citizen and resident to see that they have a better chance, better opportunity at life and being successful. And education is one. So I would form a task force that for every adverse action that's taken against a teacher or a student, that task force would be reviewed. That task force would review that action and report that to me based on, their observation or their view of that action, whether it was warranted or not.
What do you mean by adverse action? Can you give me an example?
Sure, I'll give you an example. Let's say that a young male is accused of making a terroristic threat to a teacher, and that student is now expelled. Okay? Now that student is charged with a serious crime at an early age, and instead of it being handled as a counseling issue, it's handled as a criminal issue. I think that has to be addressed. When a teacher is chastised or admonished for veering away from the curriculum that she may or he may feel that is deficient in some ways, and they're trying to add, to the learning process, and they're chastised for that or terminated, actually, is probably the most adverse action that's going to be taken. Then I think we should step in and say, okay, why did this happen? What was being taught that was so out of line, out of order, that warranted a termination of a teacher? And I think we need to get answers to that, because what I don't understand is we have a superintendent that is given this award as Superintendent of the Year, but I don't see the progress or the changes in the grades and the scores that would say, wow, I can see why he got Superintendent of the Year. I'm not saying anything against the superintendent, but I'm looking at the results right now. I'm looking at the outcome of the scores, the literacy rate, the dropout rate, and I don't see much of an improvement. So as mayor, I know that education is one of the benchmarks of whether or not you're going to have a successful workforce. And if we don't have a hold on the education, we don't have a working agreement with the Board of Education, expectations that they are meeting, just not with the public, but from the mayor's office, then, it's going to continue. And that's why I think it has continued, because I don't think any previous administrations are really trying to hold the Board of Education responsible and accountable for the results and we're looking at 20, 30 years of substandard academic performance. And now we're looking at a workforce that's unskilled. We're looking at a workforce that, no one wants to come here because we don't have skilled labor, because we have the high crime, we have the illiteracy rate, we have the violence. And where does it start? I think it starts with you don't have an opportunity from the very beginning and the foundation from the very beginning of success. That starts in the school system. And the mayor needs to take a part in that process.
Besides the sheriff's department, is there a county department you think is understaffed or one you think is overstaffed? And are there any changes that you would make?
No, not that I can see right now. It's the sheriff's department is the one that draws my attention. The others, of course, when you get in, a lot of it is as the mayor or how you want your administration to run and operate, how you see things to be efficient. You may add or subtract. You may consolidate some jobs. You may add some jobs. So I'm looking at public safety, number one, and that's the sheriff's office. And we have to do something about the efficiency of the hiring process and the pay. We have to increase pay. And right now we're short, I think, at least 100 deputies, and that's unacceptable. And even though I don't want to see us being over-policed, but I think we have to be properly manned, properly staffed. And 100 seems to be the number that we need, and I think we need to work to getting that right now, as soon as possible. These other, I call them how you see the efficiency of the government, how you see it operating. That's more when you actually get in there, because you have to talk to people, you have to see how things work from the inside, not just looking at a budget.
Bonus question. What would you do to improve race relations in Macon-Bibb?
First thing I did was enter this race, because what I saw was this city that I love, that I grew up in, and I was blessed to have parents who believed strongly in education and provided that education for me, those opportunities for me. And during that time, growing up Catholic, and interacting at St. Peter Claver and St. Joseph and Mount DeSales, I got to see a different side of what many of African Americans see as far as youth growing up. So I know that most people are not racist. I know this. They may be uncomfortable with or may have some fears because they don't know. But I think as long as you have divisiveness and you have it's on the right or the left, and it's only based on race, it's not based on who's the better candidate, that's not going to promote harmony. And I saw, in my opinion, that this race was shaping that way. So I said, well, listen, I've been in banking all these years. I know Macon probably better than most people, because I've been in politics before with respect to working on different campaigns in Warner Robins and Macon. And I know during the process of knocking on thousands of doors, talking to thousands of people over the years, door to door and in my office, that people are people. I see the humanity of it. So I know that you have someone who doesn't want to be on public assistance, so they're working 2 jobs, high school diploma, maybe GED, but they're working McDonald's one job and Burger King the other job, 8 hours a day. And they come in and they say, okay, I don't have enough for my family, and I have these, NSF fees. What can you do for me? And I do what I can, to relieve them of that little, $40, $50, what it may be. That's very important to that person. Over here on the other side, I may have somebody who works on the base, and they're making $70,000, $80,000 a year. But their concern is, I want to send my child to college, to a good college, and she, got into Vanderbilt, but I don't know how I'm going to afford it. So I see that concern. And in the middle, I see the working poor, and that person, and sometimes just the middle class, and they're being taxed, to the nth degree. And there's like, I'm just working to pay bills, and yes, I can send my daughter to private school, but I had to send them to private school because I don't have any faith in the public school to educate my child. So now I have to spend $1,000 per month per child to send them to a private school, when if the public school system was up to par, if I had faith in it, I could send my child there. So they're faced with these additional costs, but their concerns, the stress. So we see that over here, the people that are public assistants or just in ultimate poverty and despair, they look over this side and say, well, they don't have any issues, and they don't care about us either. They just look over, nose down at us. And I know that's not true, because I know that most of them said, if I had the money, I would love to donate to help, especially during Christmas and Thanksgiving and those type of times of the year. Their hearts are, they're bleeding for these people. I mean, they are. And they're like, I wish I could do more, but I have all this responsibility myself, this financial responsibility. And I think if everyone could understand that, and my grandfather told me something when I was young. He said, every man is responsible for his own household. So don't be upset when someone else won't give you something from their household. So just be prepared for that in life, that your household, you're responsible for it. So when I see these families that have single mothers as head of the household that's not dual income, and I see that they're raising their children alone, and they're in this utter despair, surrounded by crime and predators, and they can do nothing about it. And they just come in and they just be in tears at times, hopeless. But I see, on the other hand, a man comes in, he has a decent wage, but again, going back to the example of sending someone to college, he can't afford it. So he's in tears because now he has to tell his daughter, oh, you can't go to Duke or Vanderbilt or Harvard or whatever because I just don't have the money. So two people are hurting, but they're both human beings. And I see these things every day for years. And I say, we're all the same. Some may have this despair over here, and some may be okay, but still they have despair as well. But we all have, desires that we want for our children and for our future and for our posterity. Some have really no hope for what they can see. And I think that's the difference. And in order to have, I think, better race relations in Macon to get a long way to the answer, there has to be communication. And the communication has to come from sincere people who will not, and the tendency, I've tried to be a part of these things in the past, and some of the problems you have is that someone is going to expect someone to say something negative, and if you don't have proper moderation, it's going to get out of control real fast. So it's going to take the clergy, it's going to take leaders, it's going to take leadership to bring us together at the table And more importantly, we're going to have to find a way to create jobs in this city so that everyone can feel that they have dignity and they have something to bring to the table. Until that happens, it's going to be difficult to have someone who's down here in this despair to even think that they can be at the table and look someone in the eye. You know, and I think that's part of what I've seen is that getting this other party who's been downtrodden so much to get them up here and say, okay, you are somebody, you really are.
You're talking about socioeconomics as opposed to race specifically.
No, well, I'm talking about race.
Okay.
Because these are mostly African Americans that we're talking about that are in this despair I'm talking about.
Okay.
Now, we do have poor whites. I understand that too.
Right.
But we're talking about the despair, the ones who are suffering from the residuals of slavery and the curse of poverty. They just never recovered. And that's a part of Macon that many don't see unless you've been there. You know, and I've had the opportunity to ride around with some individuals who are nonprofits. And they say, Mark, let me show you the poverty you're making. And they would take me to the different, projects in the city. And I would see that, someone didn't go to school that day because it was 20 degrees. They didn't have a coat. One child didn't have shoes. They waited on someone to bring them some shoes. So the child missed 3 days because no shoes. They hadn't eaten in 2 days. They're waiting for the check to come in. And I'm saying this is Macon, Georgia, that this kind of poverty exists. And we wonder why children come to school and act out. They don't have proper nutrition. Some of them suffer from neglect, some are suffering from abuse, and they get to school and they act out. And again, that's why I think the mayor has to be involved with the Board of Education to make sure that the citizens, the parents, and the children that he's supposed to serve and protect are actually protected and represented as best as possible. So I just seen so much throughout the city of Macon. That's why I want to run, because I know there's a good part, that is viewed oftentimes as that they don't care, and that's not true. And then there's a part over here that's viewed as they don't care, they don't want to put forth the effort, they really don't care, and that's not true. So it takes a leader to get both of those individuals to look at something in the middle and say, let's at least give each other an opportunity to say something to each other without cutting each other off, and have a conversation that is fruitful, and non-accusatory. But the other part is, again, this economic disparity. We have to do something about that. Otherwise, we can do all the race relation talking and all would come to the table and hugging each other and doing Thanksgiving and Christmas, and it won't matter, because the next day, these people are still going back to the despair, to that poverty. So yes, it's socioeconomic, absolutely. But most of it impacts African Americans at a much higher rate. So I'm going to be mayor for everyone. And that's the reason I'm running as well, because I want to meet the needs of all of Macon. Because if you focus on one side or the other, it's just not going to work.
I know we're probably right up to the edge. I know we've exhausted our questions, but I just, you were kind of like the 11th hour surprise in this mayor's race, and I was just kind of curious, what tipped you going in? I mean, did you see a lack of something in the candidates that had already qualified or had already announced? I'm just curious.
Yes. And I want to be very careful not to be disrespectful to any of the other candidates. What I saw, some of the priorities, I read their bios and read some of the statements they made as far as what their priorities would be. And I just did not see the compassion that I would expect to have seen in the words that were written with respect to poverty, and to have ideas, real plans of how to create jobs. See, we can't just expect employers to come in and bring jobs to us in this particular situation we're in now, with the crime, the violence, the unskilled workforce, the literacy rate. Those are things that are not going to attract your best employers. So we may get a Kumo or Amazon, they may bring in 400, 500,000 jobs, but that's a lottery, because you only have 10,000 people applying for 1,000 jobs, and you have 9,000 people going back home, and you have 1,000 people with decent jobs. But how does that really impact the economics of Macon-Bibb? I didn't see a plan to bring about the harmony that we need. And that was a very good question about the race relations, because in this race, I start seeing nothing as far as real plans. So, I mean, what is the real platform of you bringing Macon forward, bringing these people out of despair, bringing other people, meeting their needs? Because I think, I said, the taxpayers, I can see why they're fleeing, because there's no return on investment. I mean, the city has so much history. It's so rich in history. And there's so much dignity that these children would have if they only knew. And that's black and white, you know, and Native. So I think we need to do more to motivate the youth, motivate people, educate people on the history of Macon. And I just saw that, okay, either you vote for this person because we don't want this person in. That's what I saw. And I said, well, do they really have a candidate that they want, that they can say, you know, that's the man I voted for in 2020. You know, that's the man I put in office for you. I know that, you know, there was he came late. There were maybe some questions of why he entered. But I decided that I wanted to bank on that candidate for your future, because I knew that that was the right man for the job. Forget about the loyalties and, you know, all the maybe even the donations that you made. You have to look in here. And I'm asking the voters, you look in here and you decide, you know, who's the best candidate. Don't look at the skin color. Don't look at any of those things. Listen to what I'm saying. Listen to what other candidates are saying. And who do you believe, who do you trust to bring this city out of the despair and the darkness it's in right now? Who do you think has the compassion and desire to create jobs, to use the imagination of not just himself, but we have one of the most premier universities in the world, as far as I'm concerned, Mercer University. It is a fantastic education. It's a very unique education, and they create the minds, to shape the minds of these young people, and they come out, they're brilliant, but they leave. And one of the things I would do as mayor is that I discovered that some of the students would get work study in their financial aid, but there's nowhere for them to work. So they just couldn't collect on the financial aid. They just went away. So if elected mayor, I would certainly invite Mercer to say, hey, we'll take all those interns you have, as many as you can have, as many as you can send us. We'll take them all and we'll put them to work, and we'll give them experience in government affairs or grant writing, whatever they want, wherever the city can use them, accounting, it doesn't matter. We'll give them those internships, and we'll use that energy and that wisdom that Mercer's imparting into these young minds, and we'd be happy to take them and use that as not only labor, but an opportunity to find future prospects for Macon. And it's all about using your resources, using the imagination of people who want to be, I would say, creative, and those who have these ideas of nothing's impossible, let's just take the challenge and let's get there. I don't want to hear about why we can't do it. Let's just figure out how we can.
I think we,
I talk too much.
you know, it's interesting, but, yeah, you filled it up.
Camera, if you don't mind, just like you're just talking still.
Is, Mr. Ellis affiliated with your campaign in any way?
No, not anyway. In fact, I just got in, so no one's affiliated with my campaign at this point.
You're a Lone Ranger.
Oh yeah, I'm a Lone Ranger. My daughter Brianna. That's my my mainstay right now. So.
Yeah, because I just remember Friday qualifying, like, who?
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, what? You know, because I mean, there had been several people who had talked about it, and some didn't qualify, and so you're just kind of waiting, and then everybody was like, whoa, who is that guy? You know, who is that guy?
I heard Jack was running, then I heard Virgil and Elaine, and I said, well, you know, they have enough, you know. But then I saw everybody backed out,
Yeah.
and it was just mainly, you know, two individuals that, you know.
Virgil's not gonna give up that law practice.
You don't think? So you don't think so, huh?
No, he means Watkins.
Oh,
Well, both of them. Both of them were considering, but yeah,
I
yeah.
thought he was talking about the law.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. But Watkins was the one that I was referring to. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the one that had talked about running.
Right.
He was in the early articles and such, but, you know, it kind of makes me wonder what conversations went on behind the scenes, you know? It's like, you know.
And I wasn't privy to them, so. And I have a lot of people upset with me, believe me.
I called him the other day.
I'll unhook
and,
you
Oh,
from your
okay.
side and let you
Uh-oh.
unroute it, okay? You're fine, you got plenty of slack. All
Okay.
right, there you go.
This little lady running the campaign to get you in office, what position you gonna give her?
She wants to go to law school. She said, I'm done. She said, Dad, as soon as you find a campaign manager, I'm out of here.
What about, oh, you wanna go to Tennessee?
No, it's just a t-shirt. I actually wanted to go to
Yeah, see, I think that's it. Finally, there we go.
Okay,
Is there one more?
well, just your suit.
There we go.
There you
Okay.
go, perfect.
This place has been like a hot spot for all that
You know,
long.
the first one, it was fine, and then like by the second and third one, I was just like, oh, yeah, freezing.
Get that many politicians in the room.
No, it's supposed to be hot air, right? I'm just kidding.
But the
road question is gonna be on. Randy's cousin, that's good.
Randy.
That's good.
I guess we'll just leave them.
Smart guy. Yeah, I understand you
Before
just.
we start.
The other day,
We should clean it, because they might use it in between now and then.
Even
Couldn't remember somebody's name, you know?
if we have them
It's
next
like,
time,
I'm
it
gonna
might
call
be
If-
someone.